Hi guys, I'm Garen.
I'm JD.
And this is Investigating Comic Club, where each week we chronologically will review, read, rate, and discuss specific crucial stories of the medium.
And at the end of every episode, we're going to be revealing next week's storyline to encourage you guys, the viewer, to read along with us and become members of Comic Club yourself.
Yes, please read along with us. And also review and discuss your own opinions in the comments, along with taking a episodic comic quality poll.
Yeah, and this week we're doing number 2, which is Wolverine Origin. It's kind of, actually at first it was just Origin, but now it's kind of become more known as Wolverine Origin.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Paul Jenkins, Andy Kubert, and Richard Isanove, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Paul Jenkins, he's been working in the comic field for decades, and he's kind of always, I felt he's always reliable. His stories are always just solid, good tales.
Yeah.
Andy Kubert, I have a bit of a weird relationship with him. When I first saw his work, I wasn't a fan of it for quite a number of years. And then something happened. He got moved on to a title called Kazar, and his work just was gorgeous. A specific inker started working with him called Jesse Delperdang. From the two of them together, there was like a fluidity to the work that I thought was just so elegant. Here he's working, I think it's from pencils, and then Richard Isanove is the colorist, and went over it with the colors.
The art looks that way.
Yeah, and I think it is done on a computer, and that texture and feel of the paint, I think is just kind of a computer effect.
Okay, cool.
But it is really lovely visually. This character of Wolverine, he was originally created by Len Wein, Roy Thomas, and John Romita Sr. in the 70s. 1974. And he was actually just like kind of a villain of the month for the Incredible Hulk. It was like issue 180 and 181. He just guest starred. And then later when Len Wein, along with Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum, relaunched the X-Men, they put him in there. And the thing about this comic, when Chris Claremont and John Byrne took over X-Men officially, Dave Cockrum, who was the artist previous to John Byrne, who did the last week's Galactus vs. Darkseid. Dave Cockrum actually had no use for the character of Wolverine. He didn't really like him. He didn't enjoy drawing him. He really enjoyed Nightcrawler. And he tried to write him out of the book. Chris Claremont didn't really care either way. Yeah. John Byrne, who is a Canadian, kind of fought to keep Logan on the team. And it was during John Byrne's run that a lot of the characteristics that we know of today as Wolverine came into kind of existence. And his past was always mysterious, and it was one of those things that Marvel would never tell the origin of Wolverine. They felt once that mystery was given away, the character would lose his luster kind of thing, his intrigue. You know, like people say the same thing about Darth Vader now that the prequel trilogy is out. It's like, oh, it was better when he was just kind of more mysterious.
Gotcha.
But the thing that really pulled the trigger for Marvel to do it, it was after X-Men came out in the movie theater in 2000. And they just said, well, if we don't do it in the comics, they're going to do it in the movies. And let's do it first. Like, we don't want to have be pigeonholed by something the movie does. So this was born.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's it.
What are your overall feelings of this?
Overall feelings, it was a fun read. I had fun reading it. Right off the bat, I thought of the book Secret Garden with their friendships. You know, with their friendships with like the kid who's like the master's kid who can't really get out and has the two other ones who's like showing them around. And like, no, we're gonna have fun. But no, I can't. Master won't let me. Like, it was that Secret Garden-esque.
No, I think that is a deliberate intention of the writer, Paul Jenkins. I've never read Secret Garden, but somebody has said that to me in the past.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, that's kind of what I was taking from right off the bat. I wasn't sure where it was going when I first started reading this because I was like, Origin, I knew what it was going to be about. For it to be what it is, again, review, I mean, I hope you've read it now at this point. Spoilers. But for it to go for the first part of it, and you're hearing like the guy from down below, Logan, the older gentleman, the father of the kid, dog. And then James is the kid. You know, it's like, so I'm like, oh, Logan. I'm like, oh, cool. So I was like, Origin, I was like, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, this is Logan.
Right.
This is...
Did you think the father was Logan, or did you think Dog would grow up to be Logan?
That's what threw me off. Right off the bat, you know, black and white, it was, oh, Logan's already a dad. This doesn't make sense.
Okay.
You know, like, it just didn't because of what I know as the Logan, Logan. And knowing the kid's name was Dog, so I was like, okay, maybe that would... The flip around was actually what comes to happen with him James naming himself, or she named him. Rose did, which was great. Because in that moment, like, even in that, just that switcheroo of like where I'm expecting, at that point I was like, okay, maybe I knew, the claws have to come out sometime or another, that, it's, okay, is it going to be the son then? Is it something like the son didn't know about?
They do a good job of that. They set up that mystery and they play with your expectations, especially, I think, when Dog kills James's dog. And you're like, wait, did Wolverine just kill this dog?
That moment I was like, oh my gosh, that's
how are they going to take that back?
Yeah. No, I remember reading that. I read it and it felt good to read because I was this one read smoother to me than the last one as far as the paneling goes. Yeah. And it just like felt like when I was in it, I was in it. Like I thought like, oh my gosh, the dog just died. Like I thought I was watching a movie in my mind while watching it, to where it affected me. I was like, in my head, I'm like, there's no way I could show half the people. People who are animal lovers, or like when you think about movies where it's like, that's almost like a no-no, don't kill dogs.
Yeah, you could have. No, it really is. It's that whole save the cat thing. Yeah. And when you have somebody, like if Logan had murdered another one of the help, you'd have been like, oh man, he's going to have to really work to get back on the good side. But him killing the dog, you're like, there's no redemption. Yeah. There's no coming back from that. It's pretty skillfully done. And I love that you're saying this one reads a bit better for you than last week's. Yeah. I think Rose's diary entries work very, very well in the pacing of this story. Like years pass or months pass or whatever it is. It's a really great tool. Yeah. The diary helped, but that was actually one of the things like that kind of threw me off was there was some moments where time had passed. Again, I mean, for my mindset of reading it, I'd read it and be like, wait, what? Did we just jump forward like 5 years, 3 years, like 6 months? Yeah. And I had to scroll back up and I'm like, nope, they didn't give me a clear... We changed. Right. Sometimes comics will. Sometimes it'll just be like months later. Yeah. 3 days later. And I'm not too sure. I like the challenge of reestablishing time later on without doing the obvious 3 days later. But some writers and some artists really should use that because they're just
and that's because later on in this. Yeah, just the time passing kind of threw me off, where I had to go back and be like, okay, how much time did pass in this moment?
Like, several years passed between panels at some point. Yeah. But I do think it's handled fairly successfully. And I don't think, one of the things with Andy Kubert, the artist, he's a really great bombastic writer of like chaotic energy and excitement. He's not a very great sequential storyteller, his panel-to-panel storytelling, and also moments that should have very subtle things happening. He makes some odd choices. Like, so they set off the dynamite, they run and they jump and hide, and it goes off. And then he kind of makes, Smitty Tate makes a joke. Yeah. And there's a panel of silence and then a real extreme close-up shot of the two of them laughing. Yeah. And it's just that probably would have been better with a further back silhouette shot of them laughing and you feel like connection and character moment happening. So Andy Kubert, I do enjoy him now, and and actually his skill has improved upon the years. But he can't be left on his own to pace it. I think writers that work best with him really have a specific, description of each panel as they are scripting it, if that makes any sense.
I mean, each portion of it, parts 1 through 6, like even actual Logan, the dad of Dog, like that relationship, also the grandfather of James,
right,
and having that, and then even the mother, like being afraid and having the marks on her. It's like
I'm actually really grateful for that they tell you how James grew up to be the man named Logan. But there's still a lot of mystery there. So his brother died some point, and it was really awful. And it sounds like it's hinted at the same kind of thing happened with his brother that gave scars to the mom. Before she kills herself, she says, "Not again. I should have known this would happen again." Does that mean that Logan, that both James and his older brother that died were from the affair that she had with Logan? Is it Logan's strain that makes the mutant? So there are mysteries there. A lot of people thought Dog grows up to be Sabretooth. And even in the movie Wolverine Origins, they start off with that.
It is cool. Like exactly. It's exactly what it is. It was cool to come back with Dog at the very end when the grandfather sent him.
Yeah, that was a really nice payoff. And I know that Paul Jenkins, his intention was not for that to be Sabretooth, but he felt, even at the time, that he suspected somebody further along would have him come and be Sabretooth. It's still kind of a mystery. Marvel, the comics have not firmly committed either way, if that was Sabretooth or not. So there are mysteries that are intact after this ends. And I appreciate that about it.
Having the Logan that I know, or we know before this, and how, even though this is before and what we know, having him be so connected to Rose and have her, and have to almost give her up out of love, kind of plays into him being a softy at heart, but at the same time doesn't want to trust people as well. He just loses people. So why even, I lost my family, they abandoned me at this, and I had to give up her. So now in the future, when we see him in the movies and the comics, even though this was maybe, the order of it, it's interesting to think like how they played off each other.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool way for them to notice characteristics that have evolved in the Wolverine character through the decades. Almost. And they look back and say, okay, well, what maybe was the seed of this? It's definitely not a coincidence that Rose has red hair and is like Jean Grey. And also how he treats Smitty is very similar to how he treats Cyclops in that triangle. He's like, fine, if I can't have her, you better treat her well. And I would die for both of you. To be happy, essentially, for her to be happy. And that's one of the great collisions and conflicts within the Wolverine character. That's one of the reasons that he's such an excellent character, is that he has these desires, he has these needs. He's been hurt so much, he doesn't want to open himself up to things, but he can't help but find himself caring.
And he's been around for so long that...
He's over 100 years old.
Yeah, it's like how many of these Jean Grey, Rose, Schmitty, Cyclops relationships has it been a broken record coming through?
It seems like there was this huge traumatic experience and it snaps him. And as like a defense from that, maybe his healing factor heals over that in such a way that he literally can't even recall it. At the end of this, what does he recall? We don't know. After she dies, he kills his mom, bam, that's all healed over and he forgets it. He didn't really end up killing his mom, but that's what he thinks. And then at the end, he kills Rose. When he runs into the wilderness, again, does he forget all of this? Is this the thing that made Wolverine or Logan not remember his past? We don't really know.
Because, right after they left, he kind of had a moment of forgetting even what happened. But also, right before Rose left, he kind of, had that moment where he went running to her and she was with Schmidt and he kind of lost it too. And it was another one of those, like, it goes back to probably his mom, goes back to things that we don't even see as far as abandonment issues, which makes sense,
his loss of his brother.
Yeah, his loss of his brother.
We don't really know.
There's not a lot that we still get, but it's, in a whole, this story for giving us something that we didn't have until 2009, 2008. It was a great put together, like, okay, that gives me just enough to be like, okay, I know where he came from.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty quick turnaround. So X-Men came out in the summer of 2000, and this came out, it was originally published in 2001. So they were quick to, like, oh, that was pretty successful. They're going to make more of these. Yeah. Let's do this pretty quick. I like the time period that they do this in. I love that, it's really cool that in our last week's episode of investigating Comic Club, we did Darkseid versus Galactus, and we saw the birth of the Marvel Universe. Like this explosion, really galactic and dramatic. In this, I love in the first page that it opens up with the building of this mansion. Yeah. It's like 3 shots, and we see the birth of the home that Wolverine was born in. Yeah. And I also love that in the way that we are reading this, Wolverine is kind of the first mutant we're introduced to. And in this time period, there's no word for mutant. Yeah. It's not like a scientific thing. Back then, it's more of a superstitious abomination of the devil, and I like that dynamic. I think that you could have a rich series following Logan. Oh yeah, when I thought of Wolverine, he was the Highlander of the X-Men world, of the Marvel world. It's not like, oh, it can only be one, but in the fact that he doesn't die or he can heal him. Even when I first ever saw X-Men or first Wolverine or any of that and heard about that, that's where my brain went, was Highlander. It's funny, Mount Logan in Canada is the tallest mountain in Canada, which he is named after. Yeah. I think there's particularly good character work in this. I even like the fat guy. Yeah, they are all good. Some of them are caricatures, like the fat guy. But I think his name is Cookie. Yeah, it's Cookie. He works. There is a point where it's like, oh, this guy's such a bully, but not in a way of like bad writing bully. Yeah, no. In a way of like, oh, you could get it. Yeah. I can see that guy there doing that. I like Rose, I like Smitty, I like Dog. I think Logan, James himself, we can't relate potentially to his circumstances, but the best thing about mutants, it doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, as we can all relate to the feeling of being an outsider, a misfit. Yeah. And they ground this in a way that you're rooting for him right from the start. Yeah. And Rose as well. I think that she's a good character. Yeah. And having the diary entries. The diary was great. And then I like how it ended with Cookie throwing the diary into the fire. Like just that, where it's like only us. We were the only ones who were able to see this. Right. And like, oh no. Because he never finds out that he wasn't the one who killed. He wasn't the one that killed his mom? Yeah. Well, no, he that's how we find out that he thought he did. Because Dog says, I killed your mom. Yeah, right, okay. And he's like, I always thought it was me. Yeah. But the diary makes it so that nobody else knows the truth. Right, and maybe even it's lost to him. Yeah. Dog, who knows if Dog is still alive at the end of this. But yeah, one of the things about that's so great, that is an homage to Citizen Kane. Okay, yeah. Which is Orson Welles, considered by many to be the greatest American film of all time. The ending of this with the rose on the fireplace in the fire is an homage to that. One of the things that I think is funny here, we're talking about how this followed X-Men and didn't want the movies to tell this story before the comics did. The cage match at the end of this is very, very similar to the cage match that we first see Wolverine in the X-Men movie. And they're even Wolverine. Yeah. This took that from the movie.
No, yeah.
So that's like it's a give and take.
When you told me that and I did the math, I was like, that's cool how they did that. For him to run off at the very end and go with the pack, you know, was great because it's like, he doesn't know what he is. He's like, I got to get out there and, you know.
Yeah, I am an animal. I don't belong around these people.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that was really lovely about that scene is that it's kind of heartbreaking because I think we, as a reader, we do like Smitty and we do like their relationship and we love the fact that James takes the fall in the cage. You know, it's a pretty noble thing to do.
Yeah.
And for Smitty to be running after James, crying out, like, please don't leave me. Like, I can't deal with this heartbreak on my own.
Yeah.
You know, just two grown men that loved the same thing.
Yeah.
One of them asking the other for help and support.
Yeah.
And for James to walk away from that. It's a fitting...
Yeah, he yells out, I need you.
Yeah.
Like, that's his last line. It's like, I need you.
Yeah, it's a fitting tragedy. When you think of the character of Wolverine, you feel like that's his life over and over again. Like you said, a broken record. How many of those occurrences have occurred in his life? And I think we're just kind of scratching the surface here. In a few episodes from now, we'll be reading Weapon X. And that's the next stone in that path.
I had fun as far as, you know, the artwork goes. I like the artwork. I like the paneling. It worked better for me. Like I said, there was only a few things as far as the time passing that kind of threw me off. Yeah, I gave it a B+.
Cool. I loved the one sequence of him running through the woods at night with the wolves. I thought that was really lovely. That was probably the highlight of it for me. I gave it a B-. And I actually gave last week's Galactus versus Darkseid a B- as well. They're very, very different comics. But I think both are similarly successful in telling the story that they set out to tell.
Yeah.
To start off with these two, it's a really good example of just how crazy the Marvel Universe can get. You know, it can go from very intimate stories of characters to the whole universe is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fitting origin tale. I think this is a good one that you can give to your significant other who is not a fan of comic books and say, hey, try this.
Yeah.
And I think it stacks up as far as in quality. You'll see as we go along these weeks and read different ones. There are certain origins that to this day I don't think have cracked the code of like, you need the archetypal origin of this that you can give to anybody and it's updated and great and will intrigue them, entice them to go to the comic shop and buy more. Do you know what I mean? You need those ones. You can't really give them the Stan Lee like origin of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, I love that stuff. Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, amazing. But the average person, you can't start them with that.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of solid work, not the best in the industry. Yeah. But yeah, you can give this to someone and best you can hope for is that they were entertained and they look forward to reading more about the character and the universe. Yeah. And it certainly did that for you, which is great. Yeah.
So I gave it a B+. JD gave it a B-. But we want you, the audience, to also vote, which will be a little drop down above over here. And you can vote. What did you think? A, B, C, D, or F?
Yeah, we'd love to have a dialogue with you guys. Some comments. I'd love for you guys to get together and start commenting and tell us what you like about the book, what you didn't. So next week, we're going to be doing The Marvels Project.
Boom.
By Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting. This one I'm pretty excited about. It's a pretty special tale. So I hope that you guys will join us on Comic Club, read it, come back next week, and hear what we think and tell us what you think.
To be continued. Almost forgot what I was supposed to say. I was like, until next time.